Whenever I thought of BMX, on the surface to me, it's always looked like a thriving, successful industry. However, the truth is that the BMX industry has been quietly struggling for many years. In today's video, we will look at what happened to BMX. Just before we get started, I want to give a massive shout out to Adam22. I've uploaded our full 1.5 hour conversation as a podcast to Spotify, so go check it out. So around the 50s in the Netherlands, the sport of motocross had got very popular. And so the little kids would see these people doing awesome things on a motorbike and try to just recreate them on their crappy little bikes. And this seed of what was to become BMX died. That was until the 70s in California, where the exact same thing was happening. But you see, BMX back then was only focused on racing. But that was all about a change. With two old school dons by the name of Todd and Devin Bank. As early as 1974, we could see photographs of them sending jumps on this 8-foot piece of plywood they probably got from Wix, which they had slapped together in their garden. Little did they know that this would kind of be the birthplace for BMX ramp riding and freestyle BMX. Around the mid-90s, the X Games came about, which led to around about 1997, where we would see a major evolution of the BMX. You see, to put it plainly, up until now, BMXs were crap. They weren't really built to handle the impact that street and park riders would put on the BMX.
Guys would be going through wheels constantly, just destroying everything, breaking everything, and it's cared about riding bikes so much that they were willing to deal with destroying like hundreds of dollars worth of bike parts on such a consistent basis.
But by the late 90s, things were starting to change. The bikes had become sturdier. Brands would produce racing bikes, street bikes, and dirt jump bikes. And in amongst this renaissance period for BMX, there would be the release of a very iconic video. A video that would go on to define BMX for years to come. Props Road Fools 1.
Road Fools in particular was like they would just do a road trip and they would bring all these big pros and then they would include a ton of lifestyle, which was amazing at the time because you really get to see what these people were like personality wise.
Another iconic video by the name of Nowhere Fast came out in 2000. And all this pretty much led to the early 2000s being the absolute peak of BMX. There was full media and like corporate hype behind it, with games like Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX, Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX, that I literally remember being so good at. Funny story, years later I downloaded it onto a USB when I was at college, and instead of obviously working in class, me and my friends would just plug that in and play it. To this day, I think I'm probably the best player at Dave Mirra's on earth. Anyway, on top of that, there were major corporate sponsors. You had big brands like Etnies, who would make these BMX teams and like shoot videos. The BMX magazine called Dig was like flying off the shelves.
Dave Mirra had a Slim Jim sticker right here on his helmet. And the rumor in the industry was always that he got paid $1 million a year for the Slim Jim logo.
From the early 2000s to the late 2000s, it stayed pretty strong. Everything was looking great, but there was one problem: the price. You see, a good BMX could set you back like $1,000. I mean, like $1,500 wasn't unheard of for a BMX. But the industry could support it because there was like a strong after parts market. So BMX riders would go into a shop to buy their bike. They would buy all of the different parts there, and if it broke, you would take it there to get repaired. And whilst you're sitting there waiting for your BMX to heal, you might look at the VHSs or the magazines. So despite it being very expensive, the industry had a very strong backbone and like market to sustain it. But one day someone would come along and change that entirely. A man by the name of Dan Duckworth, who set up an infamous website called danscomp.com. Dan's goal was to bring the price of BMXs right down. Before we go any further, I want to give a massive shout out to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring today's video. If you're someone who's concerned about security and privacy when you're on the internet, having a VPN is super important. Surfshark VPN is able to encrypt your data using the most secure VPN protocols, meaning that you won't have third parties nosying around what you're doing online. Surfshark VPN provides IP and DNS leak protection, so no one is able to see where it is that you're connecting to the internet from. This is perfect if you're from a country that has a heavily restricted internet. No governmental bodies or agencies can see where you're connecting from. And if you're a fan of Netflix or Hulu or any kind of streaming service, there's a ton of content that you're not able to see based on the location you're from. Like for instance, with the new Matrix coming out, I really wanted to catch up on all the old ones, but it's only available in America. But by using Surfshark, I'm able to access that here in the UK. And on top of all this, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, which will give you plenty of time to try it out, see how you get on, completely risk-free. So be sure to go and get Surfshark at surfshark.deals/Jimmy the Giant. And by entering the promo code code Jimmy the Giant, you'll get 83% off as a special holiday offer. That's 4 extra months for free. Anyway, back to the video. The phrase comp was short for complete, meaning that he was selling a full complete bike that you could order to your door, open the box, and ride away. And for BMX at the time, this was revolutionary. Dan's comp was pretty savage.
Basically monopolizing certain parts or bikes that people would really want, would slash the prices down on stuff like crazy, use super aggressive discount code to basically be Amazon and drive the price down.
The impact that Dan's comp had on the overall BMX market was pretty insane. It basically put the entire industry into like this panic. All of these companies that had been around for years had to switch up their whole business. And so they too hopped on making completes that were produced in China, and they would import them for mail order.
That like helped BMX grow a lot in the short term, because all of a sudden you had a lot more kids who were able to buy a decent quality bike for really cheap.
And for a few years, it really worked. A lot of companies were making a lot of money. And so these companies were getting giddy and bulk buying tons of BMXs to keep up with the demand. But then the demand started to wane a little bit. And by around the early 2010s, the BMX companies had realized they might have overpurchased. Pretty much all of these major BMX manufacturers were sitting there with a ton of complete BMXs gathering dust in their warehouses. So what did they do? They started discounting. They were selling them for super cheap for tiny profit margins.
The industry got so fucked up too, because people would start competing on allowing return.
Basically, if you were riding your BMX and you broke it, the companies would try and compete by offering better returns policies, and some of them might just send you out a bike for free to replace the one that you broke.
That started to be expected in the industry, which is so insane. You have one company claim that they're going to do that, and then you have every other company basically has to scramble to provide the same customer service. All these companies really basically like sabotaging each other.
And what's worse is around a similar time, like the late 2000s, early 2010s, most of the major corporate companies had kind of left BMX.
The shoe sponsors kind of leave because they realized that they got more of a bang for their buck from skateboarding. And when Nike went hard pushing in BMX, they kind of pushed a lot of the smaller shoe companies out of the way. Fast forward 5-6 years, Nike basically leaves BMX as well.
And at the same time, the media landscape for BMX was changing also. The internet was becoming the future for BMX media.
So I started my BMX blog in 2006, and that was kind of like the time period where everything was kind of going from the magazines and the DVDs to everything's going to be on YouTube and Vimeo, and this is where all these videos are going to go.
And this wasn't the worst thing for BMX at the start, until things like Instagram kind of came along. All of a sudden, any kid with an iPhone could quickly film and upload his clip to Instagram and could get thousands and thousands of views, eventually leading to the iconic Ride magazine going under. About 2013 to 2014, we'd see BMX YouTubers starting to blow up.
Hey guys, I'm Adam LZ.
You see, his videos were starting to gain a lot of views, and controversially, he got signed to a BMX company as a pro.
He became the most popular BMX vlogger, but then meanwhile, the whole BMX industry really did not fuck with him, and the hardcore pros and stuff, they all thought he was super corny.
Like, I kid you not, half of the team that he was on, half of the pros left in like a protest because they were so unhappy that Adam LZ was a pro.
I'd say about 75% of the professional BMX riders I looked up to talk trash about me on the internet, and it was just non-stop internet chaos.
And so with all of this and like the physical shops taking a hit, the health of the BMX industry, it wasn't looking good. When we look at other extreme sports, we always see skateboarding and herald it as like the best, most successful.
You know, you have somebody like the Gons, you have somebody like Rodney Mullen, etc., Day One Song. They're sort of like able to make a good living and for a long time in skateboarding as compared to BMX, where I don't know that you could find a person making a living from BMX who's over 35, like for being pro. Tony Hawk is this like amazing elder statesman for skateboarding and travels the world. For BMX, like a lot of our icons kind of got taken out one way or another. Like Mike Aitken is one of the greatest BMX riders of all time, who got a horrible head injury that really derailed his career, and he was never able to ride the same again. There was a kid named Mad Dog, aka Brett Banasewicz, same thing. Like, he was blowing up on like a corporate level, tons of sponsors, horrible head injury, took him out the game. Scotty Kramer, is somebody who won a ton of BMX contests for years and years, and then he's off like shooting something and he falls and he basically had to have his forehead removed because his brain was swelling so much. But there's been other ones too, man. There's a legendary BMX rider named Kevin Robinson who was a huge deal to me growing up. Killed himself. Yeah, there's just been so many situations in which like really, really promising BMX pros / influencers had their careers kind of cut short and things just didn't really work out. And then on the other hand, with skateboarding, you have Rob Deerdeck. You have, there's so many people that made skateboarding look awesome to an audience. And BMX didn't really like get much of that luck.
But probably the biggest blow to BMX was in February 2016, where the legend Dave Mirra tragically took his own life.
That I don't want to like paint the picture that BMX is like really dead. It's just it's been the business of it has slowed down a lot. Yeah.
BMX YouTubers are still really big. BMX videos online do very well. I mean, it was literally in the Olympics.
The truth is that there's still tons of riders who are ridiculously progressive, going hard. These dudes are passionate as fuck. The industry is smaller, but I'm sure that those kids look at the BMX game right now and I'm sure that they feel like this is incredible. Like this is the greatest shit on earth.
But the problem is that BMX over the last 10 or so years has really struggled in terms of like making a strong industry and being able to pay its pros a decent living, as well in terms of like cultural relevancy.
Kind of just wish that I had like a way to let people in a more mainstream light understand how cool my subculture was,
And people may be watching this and thinking, look, it's not skateboarding. You can't compare everything to skateboarding. And I get that. But the reason I bring it up is because there's one key difference that skateboarding seems to have that the BMX kind of lacks. And that is that skateboarding's economy and its industry values itself.
When you look at skateboarding, there's a huge emphasis put on the health of the overall industry. It's very, very difficult for you to buy skateboards from any of the big skateboard manufacturers online. They want to emphasize the sales chain. They want the local skate shop to be a place where you can get their boards, and it's kind of agreed upon that they don't sell direct to customers.
There's an incredibly big push to support local hubs that are considered the backbone of skateboarding.
Skateboarding and going to shops for my whole fucking life. That's where it's at. You find the people that are gonna be in your life forever. Skate, then die.
There's this kind of built-in understanding in the world of skateboard that sure, you could go on Amazon and buy a skateboard for cheap, or you could go to your local skate shop and buy it there. By doing that, you are supporting a company that truly cares for skateboarding, and not one that will up and leave when there's not much profit in it.
You need these like local hubs for your sport to exist from. It's just going to attract young kids who want to get into it, and it's going to make it seem, more attainable versus the mail order thing. It just doesn't do anything to create a community,
And so look, I don't want to make this a doom and gloom story for the world of BMX.
Like that's a big part of what I want to do with the position that I'm in now is I want to be able to kind of do things that put BMX on a bigger and bigger stage.
They're pushing the sport in incredible ways. All of the different disciplines have their own distinct cultures, and the skill level is insane. But there is an important lesson to learn. If you build on weak foundations, don't be surprised when one day it all crumbles. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm live streaming here on YouTube 6 PM UK time every Monday. You can support me by heading over to jimmythegiant.co.uk, picking something up there, donating to me on Patreon, or using the sponsored link below. Peace.